All right, good morning. I will call to order the April 7th, 2026 meeting of the Indiana Alcohol and Tobacco Commission. I will note that we have a quorum with 3 commissioners present in person. Next item on the agenda is the disposition of minutes of the March 17th, 2026 meeting.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we've received a report of the minutes of the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission, March 17, 2026. Those have been reviewed. I move acceptance of the minutes as proposed.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item, prosecutor's recommendations.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we've received a report from the prosecutor's office on the alcohol and tobacco fines collected. There were a total over this last term of 62 fines for a total of $43,050. There are several worthy of note, actually 8. The first comes from us, to us from Indianapolis. They include in November 25th, task force was assigned an investigation report of a shooting in a business. It was determined that there was a promoter who used the location of the permit for an event and did not appropriately check for weapons, and therefore the shooting occurred. Violation was written for public nuisance. The permittee has been filed, and again, I point out the permittee, not the promoter, but the permittee was already filed a corrective action plan and has agreed with the prosecutor to a $1,000 civil penalty and a 3-day weekend suspension of the alcohol permit. The second is from Evansville. It occurred in February of this year. Officers conducted an inspection and they found counterfeit Zyn products. Over 40 of them were counterfeit and were discovered and confirmed that they were counterfeit. A public nuisance was filed for the tobacco location, and the parties have agreed to a $1,000 fine and a 7-day suspension of the tobacco certificate. The next 6 of those all involve tobacco permits, and they all involved the sale of hemp. One was in Gary, Indiana, where they conducted an investigation and found the hemp. The second was in Muncie, Indiana, where a complaint was filed and they found the hemp products. The next is from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and during an investigation, they discovered hemp products, 700 hemp products. In the fourth is from Linton, Indiana, Greene County, where they conducted a complaint investigation, discovered 1,000 smokable hemp products. The next is from Franklin, Indiana, Johnson County, and that was again hemp products, discovered hundreds of pre-rolled and smokable hemp. And the final one is in Blackford County, Hartford City, where the smell of marijuana was found as a result of a complaint. And during the investigation, they found 800 smokable hemp products. All 6 of those were found after either an investigation or a report complaint. The parties agreed to a $1,000 civil penalty and a 7-day suspension of the tobacco certificate for all 6 of those. Again, we've seen these hemp products coming over and over again, and caution tobacco permittees that they should understand the price is pretty steep for them. I move acceptance of the report from the prosecutor's office.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. I would just note on the hemp, they were finding smokable hemp.
Yes. Yes.
Which is a distinction there.
Right.
Smokable hemp is clearly prohibited by statute.
Okay.
With that, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Consideration of applications. There are 570 renewal applications.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
jumped ahead. Hearing judge recommendations. We have one hearing judge recommendation for today. That is for BR 1761925 Samantha Reagan. This is an order on a show cause hearing.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this was assigned to me as the hearing officer under BR 1761925 Samantha Reagan. There was an investigation in August of 2025 as a result of her employment at the New Yorker. There was a shooting with injury. When the officers went there, they discovered that the permittee was serving alcohol behind the bar. That is from Samantha Reagan serving alcohol behind the bar when the shooting occurred. When that occurred, she then left and went to unplug the surveillance video. When the police arrived during the investigation, and they talked to patrons who was visibly intoxicated, they also saw Samantha Reagan continue to serve alcohol to that person. This was set for a settlement hearing. She failed to appear. It was then set for a real cause hearing. She failed to appear. As a result of that, the prosecutor submitted evidence as just described. Based upon her no-show and the fact that there was a preponderance of the evidence of the items that I just discussed, I prepared an order to show cause hearing and move to revoke the permit of Samantha Reagan under BR 1761925.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Now, moving on to consideration of applications, we have 570 renewal applications.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, I incorporate by reference this list of 570 applications for renewal, which have been recommended by local boards and reviewed by our staff with authority of the commission. I hereby move for approval of the same pending any needed escrow hearings and inclusion of this list in the minutes of April 7th, 2026 meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 35 new and transfer applications. We did receive 3 letters on one new application alleging, it seems like alleging escrow violations, maybe some speculation, but we haven't had time to look at that and whether the concerns are valid. So I would move that we continue permit RR 4343406 to our April 21st meeting.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. That brings our new and transfer applications to 34.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I incorporate by reference this list of 34 permit applications for new permit or applications for change in ownership or location or both of the existing permits, which have been recommended by local boards, reviewed by a commissioner, and hereby move approval of the same pending a final floor plan approved by the state excise police and an escrow hearing if needed, and included in this list as part of the minutes of April 7th, 2026.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. 67 catering applications.
I incorporate by reference this list of 67 permit applications for catering and hereby move for approval of the same and the inclusion of this list as part of the minutes of the meeting of the commission on April 7th, 2026.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. 283 direct wine shipper applications.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, I incorporate by reference this list of 283 new and renewal direct wine shipper permits and move approval of the same and inclusion of this list as part of the minutes of the April 7th, 2026 meeting of this organization.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you to Maria Cruz
Yes.
for her work on these.
Yes.
They always fall at the same time every year, and 283 is a lot to process. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to Maria for staying on top of those. Next item, waivers of fees for letters of extension.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, we've received a report listing of the waivers of fees and letters for extension. I move approval of same.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Items for discussion. The first item for discussion is permit RR 8404285 Warehouse LLC. This is a renewal with the local board voting 2-2.
Yes, this comes to us from, Vigo County. It did have 4 violations and some 116 police calls for service. However, it has had no violations or police calls, noted for the past year. We have received a corrective action plan. In that, they state that they have established a no in and out policy. If someone leaves, they can't come back in that day. And they have put in place limits on how much alcohol is sold at a time to a customer. We've also gotten letters of support from the mayor and the chief of police. The owner has indicated to excise that the business has closed down, that it is no longer selling alcohol, and that there is a buyer that has been identified. Based on letters of support and that the permit is not in use and is moving forward to be sold, I move that we grant a 1-year renewal for RR 404285 Warehouse LLC.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I just wanted to comment. I had written on my notes to consider voting no on this, but there is a cap in place. And the fact that there is an identified buyer, I'm going to support this motion, but I find the number of violations over the years. And some of the things were 5 guns, shots fired, 36 fights, 5 overdoses. I just find this to be egregious, but since this is going to be transferred, or the intent is to transfer, I'm going to support this.
I will note, at local board, we were talking about police runs up to a certain date. And there was some testimony from the permittee that they had decreased since that date. I think it was July or August of last summer. So I was somewhat persuaded in this by the letter from the chief of police. We still didn't get the number of runs during that time, I don't think, but the fact that the chief of police supported the renewal on this swayed me. But with this renewal, if they choose to reopen, it'll be strict compliance and moving forward under the corrective action plan. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next is RR 4543237 Shirley Carter, transfer with the local board voting 3-1 to approve. We continued this from our last meeting and requested information.
Yes, this is a permit up in Lake County. We did ask our legal office to send them a letter confirming whether the owner's father would be involved in the business and several other things dealing with the father being involved in the business. It appears the father may have some disqualifying offenses. We may have some other issues too with that. They did respond with an affidavit from Shirley A. Carter. It is noted in that the father will not be involved in the operation of the business. He has no financial or beneficial interest in the business. He will not be involved in ordering alcohol or stocking shelves. They went on to state that he's only the landlord for the building and he'll just be involved to that extent. the other thing that they stated in here is, that they understand that, if the individual in question is found to be involved in the operation of the business during the time the permit is active, the commission may take action to revert the permit back to the state of Indiana. So I just want to point out that they are aware that if the person in question is found involved in this business, we will be moving to revert that permit back to the state, and they will lose their investment in that permit. Since we have received that affidavit and it states that they understand the person in question can't be involved and the permit will revert if he is found to be, I move to allow the transfer of the permit to Shirley Carter, and that is our 4543237 Shirley Carter.
I will reluctantly second that, but reserve the right to make comments about this.
Okay, I will open it's been moved and seconded. Is there additional discussion?
I'd just like to comment, it's helpful that there's an affidavit, but I do want to comment that we look very closely when there's a transfer, particularly within family members, whether it's a truly arm's length transaction. And I know that as indicated in the affidavit number 6, I understand that if Kevin Carter Sr. is found to be involved, and while that's helpful to state, it left me when I first read this with the impression was we're going to try to hide this, but if we're found to not comply, then there are consequences. I would have preferred it to say directly and specifically that. Secondly, I point out that this owner in the transfer has a full-time job working as a nursing assistant somewhere during the day, and intends in the future to resign her or retire from that position. I caution people that having a full-time job and then operating a full-time restaurant bar is very complicated, to say the least. I note in a number of the corrective action plans, there are problems that come up, but there's no statement in many of those, maybe all of those, that the manager, the owner permittee will spend full time operating this permit. I caution that this is not an investment per se, although if it is, there's a heightened responsibility to make sure that the business is run appropriately and following all rules, regulations, and laws to make sure that it's done. In this case, I'm going to support this because of the affidavit that is pointed out by Commissioner Magnet. If he is found to be involved, that the commission may take action to revert the permit. I would have preferred that said if he's found to be involved, that the license will be surrendered rather than may be taken. I hope that we watch this very closely for any violation.
I would agree with some of that. I think this has been a family business. It seems to be continuing down the path of being a family business. There was talk about Kevin Carter Jr. being involved. Kevin Carter Sr. is the landlord. We've seen this happen before where there's a landlord who's not really kept at arm's length and ends up running the business. So I would just caution that there are certain behaviors a landlord does not engage in. A landlord does not schedule staff, manage staff, order alcohol, run the bar. Those are not activities of a landlord. So Kevin Carter Sr. needs to remain a landlord. His involvement in the building would be maintenance issues and collecting rent, period. He is not to be operating the alcohol permit. And I think with it still being a family situation, it will be easy. I don't know if I read it that it's intended the same way you did, but it will be easy to fall back into that. So we have the affidavit, we have the sworn testimony under penalties of perjury. That's not what's going to happen. I watched the body cam video. There was a lot of our point of sale, our bartenders, and they can't be his bartenders or his point of sale system because he has sworn, well, actually, he hasn't, his sister or his daughter, sorry, has sworn that it's not his business. So that's my word of caution because we've seen it happen before. So again, I'm a reluctant yes, but I won't hesitate to reverse if we see behaviors that don't comply with what's been sworn testimony and what's legally required, since he would be prohibited from owning the permit. With that, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item is RR 7103567 Lynn Corporation. This is a renewal with the local board voting 2-1 to approve for 1 year.
Yes, this comes to us from St. Joseph County. It was on our agenda before, and we continued it and asked our legal office to send them a letter for a corrective action plan. That the corrective action plan, we need it because of past violations. That corrective action plan has been submitted. They state in the corrective action plan that staff has been retrained on checking IDs and on identifying intoxication. And they also state that they are going to be closing early, and that is 11 o'clock on Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays. And that they will hire security for the weekends, and they're going to modify their music to try to attract a different crowd. Based upon the cap and things that they've stated that they're going to do to address problems that they've had, I move that we approve a 1-year renewal for RR 7103567 Lynn Corporation.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, permit for discussion is RR 4941113 State Street Pub Indy LLC. This is a renewal with the local board voting 2-2.
Yes, this comes to us from Marion County. This also was on our agenda on March the 17th. We also requested a corrective action plan, and legal did follow through and get a corrective action plan from them. They did identify the corrective action plan, that they have set in place job descriptions, policies, codes of conducts, and those have been signed by their employees. They also received a letter of support from Councilman Brown. And I will note that our legal office said that they have been very responsive about sending the required information in. Based upon that information, I move that we grant a 1-year renewal for RR 4941113 State Street Pub Indy LLC.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I would just note, stay on top of the business. So I was happy to see the corrective action plan, and the way the business is managed may come back to whether we renew this or not, but I appreciated the corrective action plan. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item for discussion is DL 2932924, Sing Bros Oil Incorporated. This matter comes on for a request to reinstate.
Yes, due to an administrative error, this permit was marked as not showing for escrow for 2 periods, which they did not show. But escrow had previously been approved for this permit. I do wish they would have let us know, so we wouldn't have wasted time scheduling them and rescheduling them and marking them as not showing up. They have, the renewal, everything is ready to go, and escrow now is a moot point, and there is a transfer that is ready to go too, that will proceed once we take care of this issue. And based upon the administrative error, I'm going to move that we make the escrow previous rulings moot, and we approve the renewal, and then a transfer will proceed for DL 29-32924 Singh Brothers Oil, Inc.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, or is there any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item for discussion is RR 4536827, America's Most Wanted Franchise LLC. This is a request to reinstate.
Yes, this permit had been, in the process of being, it was made inactive by us previously. We have had contact now from the owner. He, did have some, medical issues and some financial problems. That's why we did not receive any communication from him. There was an address problem. He has now verified address with us. I will note that this permittee has not had any violations. And based upon that recent communication with him and that he was had medical problems and financial issues, I'm going to move that we reinstate this permit and the catering permit that goes with it. And that is for RR 4536827 America Most Wanted Franchise LLC, and the catering permit is C245322219.
I will second with comment.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. I will open it for discussion.
While I will vote yes on this, I just wanted to point out a few things. First of all, in a note that he sent in January 2nd, 2026, he indicated he was under a tax appeal. I'm going to assume that was because of the health issues previously indicated, but I would just point out that failing to pay taxes is to me pretty serious. They make a sale and you collect tax, that is no longer your money. And that should be understood by everyone, that that money is held in trust for the state of Indiana, and failing to pay that, and in this case, then having a tax appeal on the amount is a concern to me. Secondly, there is an interested buyer, and I assume that by stating that, while we would be reinstating this permit, that the intent is a reinstatement for sale purposes. He doesn't go into much detail on that, but I assume that he will comply with that. And finally, I just point out that the issue of the address is something that every permittee needs to mention. We send notices out at the address that they give us. And if they change the address, and he has submitted on April 1st, 2026, a change of address. But I think more and more we see that people don't get notices, they don't do things that causes us a whole lot of work and gets into the legalities of the notification the process is taken. So just a reminder to all permittees to make sure that you keep your address current, because we're going to send notice that we can't guess where you are. And if you initially put the address as the location of the permit and then change and want that to come to your business or personal address, you need to notify us of that. So I'm going to vote yes on this, but I just point those things out.
I would just note, this was pending auction. If it had been auctioned and that quota slot had already gone to someone else, it would be too late for us to reconsider. So people need to stay on top of their permits the expiration date is the same every year. We need those filings. So I'll vote yes, but if this had already been auctioned, my vote would be no, because there would be nothing left to reinstate. With that, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item for discussion is RR 0201550 Sunset Catering Incorporated. Again, a request to reinstate.
Yes, this comes to us from Allen County. As our chair stated, this permit is on the auction list. They're asking to be reinstated. We have had a history of not filing timely from this permittee, and that's after numerous requests and notifications, notifications by the ATC. There was some strange communication from them about what was going on with this permit. They stated they're having problems finding insurance, but this permit is in escrow and it does not need insurance. We're still not sure what the issue is with the insurance since they don't need it. They hadn't renewed the permit, they stated, because of the insurance issue, which is a requirement for renewal. They have indicated that they're hopefully in the process of going to sell this permit. I am going to move that we put this back in, that we take it out of the auction list and reinstate it. But I will note that it is in escrow and it will remain in escrow. It may not be actively used. And I'm going to ask legal to notify them that within the next 30 days, they need to file a complete application for the past renewals that are due, including no missing information and the court payment. And then I'm going to also move that we put this on our May 19th agenda for follow-up to make sure that everything has been done. And that's going to be strike 3 if they have not followed through on getting the permit renewed, and any other information to us. Then when it comes back on May the 19th, I'm going to be looking then, or I'm going to be suggesting to my colleagues that we put it back on the auction list. So move to reinstate the permit. It remains in escrow. Have legal send the letter, 30 days to get all the application complete and back on our May 19th agenda to see if it needs any further action. And that is for RR 0201550 Sunset Catering Incorporated.
Only for the purposes of moving this forward, I'm going to second that, but I do want to make a comment.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. I'll open the matter for discussion.
As indicated by Commissioner Magnan, there seems to be some real questions about this. And again, this is not just a pro forma approval. This is a request to reinstate. And in this case, I'm going to vote no. And I want to explain that vote. It seems to me there's a fundamental misunderstanding or failure to understand about what escrow means. Escrow means you're not operating. Having their comments as indicated about insurance tells me two things. Either they don't understand the business and what this issue of escrow means, or they've been open and they know they need to have insurance for protective purposes. I just have serious questions about whether or not this should be reinstated based upon their lack of understanding of what it means to be in escrow. I'm frustrated and concerned that this has been a long-standing issue. I'm going to vote no on this, but I do that in part to make sure that the conditions that were stated earlier and the setting this for May 19th are followed. But I expect on May 19th, I will vote again no, and hope that another commissioner looking at this and their failure to comply with the conditions set out, they're going to not be reinstated, and we're going to address things further.
I will be a reluctant yes, but I share your concerns. I think this is the second time we've been down this path with this permit. I will note that ownership of the permit holder changed between those two, so I guess we're dealing with different individuals, but you inherit the history of your permit, and the history of your permit is it wasn't renewed, you had to come back and ask to be reinstated, it was reinstated, and here we are again, a couple years later dealing with the same issue. I'm going to advise the permit holder today that renewal applications are due to the commission 90 days prior to expiration. For this permit that expires on July 1st, every year, renewals are due April 2nd. Yes, it doesn't revert to the commission for 6 months after that expiration date. But your first goal should be to meet the 90 days prior to expiration. So what they need to note that, they need to calendar it, whether it's in escrow or not. Renewals are due April 2nd every single year. And I would also just note this was also pending auction. If it had been auctioned, there would be nothing left to reinstate. So it's really important, if this is your investment and this is valuable to you, that you get those renewals on file, you get them on timely, you respond to our notices. So I'll be a reluctant yes on this one.
May I just respond?
Yeah,
I want to support you on that. We literally have thousands and thousands of permits, and thousands of permittees follow the rules and regulations and use indicated filing 90 days ahead of time, making sure things get done. It is only those few who don't seem to comply, either because they don't understand or they're just not going to comply. But I want to comment that to those thousands and thousands who really follow through with that, thank you for that. I also want to point out that our staff are wonderful at helping. So it's not like they have nowhere to turn. Our staff are extremely professional, helpful, knowledgeable. They're available if you have a question, call your processor. But in this case, they seem to continue to ignore what thousands of other committees are able to do quite well.
been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no.
No,
Motion carries 2-1. Next permit for consideration is RR 1123795 Mario Bros Incorporated. This matter comes on for an extension request.
Yes, this is in Brazil, Indiana, and they have had 2 violations. One last year for bootlegging and one this year for bootlegging and no employee permits. The one was outstanding, but I believe it has been taken care of this morning. Because they've had a problem with the bootlegging is an expired permit that they continue to operate on and no employee permits. Because they've had that problem, I would like to have a corrective action plan. Make sure that they understand that they have to renew their permit, and as the chair just stated, they need to get their paperwork in 3 months before the renewal. People need to be on top of this. If this is their livelihood, they need to take it seriously. It goes a lot easier for everybody if you can stay on top of the paperwork issue. On the violation, I believe it's been settled this morning, but I would, in addition to the cap, I wanted them to check with the prosecutor and make sure everything is cleared and good to go on the violation that was outstanding. I believe those are the only issues. They do have an extension in place right now. They have had 2 extensions, one from April 2nd of 25 to June 30th of 25. and one from January 14th of 26 to April 14th of 26. So this permit, the extension doesn't expire for another week. And I'm going to move that we grant a 1-week extension to that until April the 21st. Put them back on our agenda, make sure everything is okay with this permit during that period of time, and get the corrective action plan to us during that period of time. So 1-week extension, have legal contact them, ask for a cap, and also notify that if there is any issues with the prosecutor, just pay a visit or a call to the prosecutor if they haven't as of today. Take care of that, make sure everything is cleared with our prosecutor, and that is for RR 1123795 Mario Brothers Inc.
I'll second that. Just a question though, you want this back on the calendar for April 21st.
That's correct.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I will note that I think we now have a good email address. We were sending letters. They seem to be getting delayed. So when they renewed for 25 to 26, they had missing information and we lost contact. Well, when your extension expires, that's the day you stop selling alcohol. If your permit expires, you stop selling alcohol. If your extension expires, you stop selling alcohol. So hopefully that additional contact information we received today will clear up some of those issues, make it easier to communicate, and get us that missing information if that's the situation that comes up in the future. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item for discussion is RR 6239441 Lock and Key LLC. This matter comes on for an extension request.
Yes, this permit comes to us from Perry County, and unfortunately, the owner passed away, did not have a will, and didn't have an operating agreement for the wife. We now have received some legal documents, and that is before our legal office to review. But it has now been set for a local board hearing for its renewal, and that is on May the 27th. They have had one extension. This will be the second starting today, and I grant that for, or I move to grant that for 90 days for RR 6239441 Lock and Keel LLC.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item for discussion is RR 4328199 Jam Bar LLC. This matter comes on for an extension request.
Yes, this is from Northwest Webster, Indiana. They have had a first, they did expire November 16th of 25. They had a first extension from November 25th, 2025 to February 23rd of 2026. They had a certificate of insurance issue that has been taken care of, and that they are now scheduled for a local board hearing for the renewal of the permit on May the 7th before Kosciuszko local board. And they did state that the reason for the extension is due to family health issues. And I move that we grant a 90-day extension for RR 4328199 Jam Bar LLC.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item for consideration is RR 2211352 Bernadette Mattingly. This matter comes on for an extension request.
Yes, this is a New Albany permit. It did expire December 16th of 2025. It has had a first extension from December 31st, 2025 to March 31st, 2026. This the owner of this permit, did pass away, and, a family member inherited the permit. I don't believe the individual who's received it, wants to keep the permit. She's in the process of selling it to another party. It sounds like, they have that pretty much ready to go. I am gonna move that we grant a 90-day extension for RR 2211352 Bernadette Mattingly.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I just wanted to point out that in the letter sent by this individual on April 2nd, she made a statement. I finally spoke to Mr. Coyle, who was very helpful. I just want to note that, again, the staff is professional, knowledgeable, and very helpful. And I acknowledge for her this note that they complimented staff.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item for discussion is DL 6733587 Dev Group LLC. This matter comes on for an extension request.
This is in Greencastle, Indiana. It's a grocery store permit. They did expire June the 5th of 2025. They have one extension from December 30th, 25 to March 30th of 26. They do not have any violations. We are in need of an updated floor plan or affidavit and a list of other permits. That should be really easy items to get to us. I'm going to move that we grant a 90-day extension contingent upon those first being provided to us. As soon as we receive those, we'll issue the 90-day extension. And I move that for DL 6733587 Dev Group LLC.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. There are two. One of these extensions got added to a later agenda, but just for the record, we'll talk about it here. Adding two extensions to the agenda. They are DL two matters to the agenda. One is an extension for DL 7520067 JK Deli Incorporated. That matter comes on for an extension request. I'm sorry, there are three matters. I'm trying to follow my notes.
Right.
So second is an extension for DL 4932456 VP 51 Incorporated. That's an extension request, and adding RR 02411154 Main Street Occasions. That is a request for catering hall designation. We'll take it by consent.
And there's also in zoning.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had that one on here too.
You have some here.
Yep, I have the.
Okay.
Okay, also adding a third extension, RR 4938160 In Zone Bar and Grill LLC. Can we take it by consent to add those four additional matters to the agenda?
Consent.
All right, taking those one at a time now. DL 7520067 JK Deli Incorporated. This matter comes on as an extension request.
This comes to us from Spencer County. They've had some items that were still due to us. They've gotten that paperwork in. The renewal is now complete. They are scheduled for the local board on May the 12th. They have one extension from January 4th to April the 3rd. They did expire January the 3rd. And I move that we grant a 90-day extension for DL 7520067 JK Deli Inc.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I would just state for the record that there is a request for extension filed in this case, but I find it uninformative about what was going on. I can't read the second word, to something close.
Too close to.
Too close, okay. Too close to expiration date, and you mentioned earlier, you've got 90 days or so, but figure all this stuff out. It says it's too close to the expiration date, need to have an extension. Well, not too close, you just didn't do it. Please, let's work ahead of time to get these done.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item for discussion is RR 02-41154 Main Street Occasions requesting catering hall designation.
Yes, this is in Woodburn, Indiana. They do not expire until May 28th of 26. They did send us a letter on March the 31st of this year asking for the catering hall subtype. Note that they do not have any violations, and I move that we grant the catering hall designation for RR 02-41154 Main Street Occasions.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item for consideration is RR 4938160 In Zone Bar and Grill Incorporated. This matter comes on for an extension request.
Yes, this is here in Marion County. This is a third extension request. I will note that they had some violations, and they did submit a corrective action plan to us in December of last year, and that they have stated to us that they are reconfirming that cap, the information in that cap. They did expire September 9th and 25. They have had 2 extensions from September 10th, 25 to December 8th, 25. Second one, January 6th, 26 to April the 6th of 26. And they are asking for a third. I will note that they have been in contact with our officer, Sunier from here in Marion County. They have a meeting with her. And they are before the local board on May the 4th. And sounds like they are working on taking care of violations, which have been from retail to retail sales, making sure that they don't do those in the future. And I'm glad that they're meeting with our excise officer. Always a good idea to stay in contact with your excise officer and stay legal. Call them with any questions you have on how to stay legal. And I move that we grant this third extension for RR 4938160 In Zone and Grill Inc.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to point out that this is the third letter of extension. I generally am opposed to those, but in this case, it seems to me that there's a meeting with the officer on April 23rd. There is a board hearing scheduled for May 4th. If I understand correctly, they will not be renewed on that date if they don't solve the violation. In addition, there is a supplemental corrective action plan filed, and I'm supportive of that. I think it's well done, so I will vote yes on this, but reluctantly.
I believe the violation is resolved.
Is that right?
Allegedly, as of yesterday, I've not seen a copy of it yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
With that, I was sitting on pre-hearings on this matter as
Okay.
hearing judge. So with the understanding that something was filed yesterday resolving the violation, I will vote today on the extension. And I would just encourage them, they're set for local boards by 4. Sometimes we see these get continued and continued.
Okay, gotcha.
We'll look closer at a 4th extension if it comes to that. So stick with local board and moving forward with that. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. The last matter for today, DL 4932456 VP 51 Incorporated. This comes on for an extension request. At our last commission meeting, we heard this and granted an extension until today. It was heard at local board yesterday, which was the reason we extended it to today. Local board voted 2-2, which since this was just yesterday, we haven't had an opportunity to review that reporting, what the local board did. I would indicate that, or I would move for an extension until April 21st. That will give us an opportunity to review the local board and to fully consider the remainder of the extension prior to that date.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Inactive files, we had 49 permits to be made inactive. We did receive renewals for RR 06-42137, which would bring that to 48. Can we take it by consent to change that to 48?
Consent.
All right, with 48 permits to be made inactive.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I incorporate by reference these in these lists of permit application to be made dead and hereby move for approval of same and the inclusion of this list of 48 as part of the minutes of April 7th, 2026 to be made dead on April 7th, 2026.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. I will note that for that 23 permits to be made inactive on 4/21, we did receive renewal for RR 7136964. So there are 22 permits left that will be made inactive if we don't receive renewals by that April 21st date. First meeting in May is moved to Wednesday, May 6th due to the primary election day holiday. There are a couple others there. Unless somebody stops me, not seeing any other items on the agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.